Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Manga Man Drew, and I'm here to do my manga review for My Hero Academia Manga Chapter 416. Yes, I'm just gonna jump really right into this chapter because, in reality, not a lot actually went down in this chapter. There's some stuff that I really want to talk about and some predictions that I want to make for the upcoming chapters, but there isn't like a whole lot that we really need to discuss in this chapter, so I'm just gonna jump right into it and really tell you what's going on with this chapter. And let's just start off with the first page, and just a lot of panels in this chapter is going to have Deku going in for an attack. And the attack that he goes in with just looks amazing. We have the first panel where we see that he looks like Dark Deku with his mouth literally looking like the maws of a monster, as we see that he's about to attack into Shigaraki, who's being covered by all of these fingers. And there is something that I want to bring up, is that as we see Deku literally cutting through these fingers and actually about to land a definitive blow on Tomura at the end of the chapter, what's very interesting is that we see that the fingers themselves aren't really going to attack Deku or potentially use decay, but are encompassing on him as a protective shield. And this may explain why Deku is able to cut through them with ease without the worrying of decay actually doing some damage to him, because at this moment Tomura isn't worried about attacking but defending, and he can't really defend and attack at the same time without potentially putting himself in harm's way. So that's probably something, and kind of the reason why Deku is even able to do some of these amazing looking panel attacks without decay actually affecting him. But talking about that, let's actually go back to the title of the chapter, which is Force Your Way Through Izuku Midoriya. And this is where a lot of what is going to be happening in this chapter is going to come into play, because we get a reveal of why we ended the last chapter with Eri, because we're going to be cutting over to different areas and getting sort of a wrap up of those locations. We actually cut over to an area at UA where we see Eri and Ectoplasm, but then we also cut over to the area at Gunga Mountain as we see those characters being taken care of, as well as cutting back to Central Hospital where we get to see Lady Nagin, as well as my man Rocklock. And with Eri in particular, we get to really get a little bit more from her as a character, which is something that I wasn't expecting, because we see that she's obviously worried about Deku, and that she thinks that, oh man, Ectoplasm, I have to go help him. Can we use those tunnel thingies to go to him? And Ectoplasm explains to her that, yeah, no, that's not going to work. They're broken because of all of the battles with Gigantomachia, Dabi, and All-For-One. But then he also brings up something that we've pretty much known for the entirety of this section of the war, that Eri, even if she could get to Deku, does not have enough energy in her horn to actually do something. That is the reasoning why many heroes, and even Aizawa himself, were not fully recovered, because Eri didn't have the energy to do so and used it on Mirio prior to what happened during the war, because they didn't expect for them to actually lose. But even with this reveal, and that she understands what's going on in the situation, she still wants to help Deku, where we do get potentially a reveal that she told Deku what she wants to do, and it made him, as well as the other characters of Class 1A, very happy to hear. And this is something interesting, because I think that there are many ways you can take Eri's dream to be, but I think that most likely than not, especially with the introduction of Kota right next to her, trying to cheer her up and saying that, yeah, I'm a crybaby, but so is Deku, but because we're the same, that's why I can support him. Most likely what this is tying into the idea that Eri may actually want to be a hero, and that she is inspired by Deku, and that's the reasoning why Deku says that he wants to do better, and that what she said is motivating him. And this is going to be a running theme with a lot of the characters that we see in this chapter, tying into the idea of people beginning to believe in Deku, and that they may be worried about him, but that they still believe that he can get the job done, even if it's fluctuating and hesitating a little. And that idea can actually tie into another character in another area that we cut to, where we get to see Momo as well as Kaminari. We have not seen these characters in a while, but it's glad that we get to see him. And this is where the second part of what I was saying was talking about. The characters trying to believe in Deku, because Momo brings a reference about how Deku looks like he was back in the Vigilante arc, the Dark Deku arc, and how she's very concerned for Deku. But then you have Kaminari, who at this moment has used up his power so much that his brain is a little bit short-circuited, as we can see by how he looks in his eyes. And pretty much he's thinking to himself how, when it comes to the shonen trope about how they're characters that always believe in this one guy and that no matter what, he can do it and get it done, and that they trust him, but that he's worried about Deku, and that he believes that that worry means that he doesn't trust Deku. And this is something that I want to bring up, because we have to realize that what Kaminari is saying is only partially true. Yes, he does care about Deku, and yes, he does not want Deku to be hurt, but he brings up the idea that, well, Deku is the strongest character, he's not treating Deku the same as All Might, where with All Might, the idea of All Might is that everything will be fine if he fights. But when it comes to Deku, it's not that everything won't be fine, but that he is worried about Deku. And I think that is going to be something that many of the characters are going to realize, is that being worried about Deku is fine, because being worried about him means that you care about him and that you don't see him as a symbol, but you see him as a person. That is the major difference between All Might and Deku. All Might was the symbol of heroes. Deku is literally a hero that people care about. And caring about others actually cuts over to the next two areas that we see. The area at Gunga Mountain with Uraraka, as well as cutting over to Nagant and Rocklock, where we don't get a whole bunch with Uraraka. We see that they're actually taking her away to get medical attention, which is very important because it means that most likely than not, Uraraka is going to survive. However, people brought up that potentially this may not actually be Uraraka, but it's actually Toga. And there's a few things. One, just because we do not see Toga does not mean that she's alive. Most likely than not, she's potentially dead. And people bring up the idea that if it was actually Uraraka, then Frappy wouldn't be crying. But she would still be crying because her friend is being taken away in a helicopter because she was heavily injured. So we're getting more of the understanding that a lot of the heroes who are at this location are most likely going to be saved, including Uraraka, but how this ties into the other location close by, where we get to see Tokoyami and Hawks on the ground, as Hawks remembers the girl who gave the speech at UA, and remembers, oh yeah, that girl. And how he believes what she says about everybody seeing themselves united as one, which is going to tie most likely into what we're getting later on in the series of everyone cheering, supporting Deku, not because he's the symbol, but because of his actions and what he has done. And that's going to most likely tie into it, what we see later, as it is paralleled, as well as we see Deku fighting and going against Tomura. And how we get the reveal that Lady Nagant is still alive. And what is very funny about this is that we have our title box that says former hero and former villain, which is funny. She also explains to Rocklock why she believes in Deku, and that she pretty much explains it's because Deku opened her heart, and that the reasoning why she supports Deku is just who Deku is and what he has done in the story. That he does what the villains hate the most. He is going to do everything in his power to take away their will to fight. And this is a great callback, because it calls back, weirdly enough, to the arc where Rocklock was introduced, and the idea of what heroes have to do is to make sure that the villains lose the will to fight. While the villains can kill them, run away, destroy things, what heroes are supposed to do is not kill, not destroy, but make sure the villains lose the will to fight. And that what Deku has been doing throughout the entire story, for the most part, is fighting to defeat the villains instead of fighting to defeat the villains and make them lose the will to fight. And why this is important is because he's fighting against Tomura Shigaraki, who is literally fueled by hatred. And the only way for you to stop him at this moment is for him to give up and stop fighting, to give up on his hatred, to give up the will to continue to fight on. that is what Lady Nagin has said, and that is what Deku is doing within the final parts of this chapter, as everyone is seeing this going down, as someone in the crowd watching this entire thing is whispering, "Do your best." And that ties into what All Might always wanted to say to Deku, for him to do his best, because Deku is the character that always tries to do his best. And I think that this is going to tie into a very amazing scene of the entire crowd just supporting Deku, do your best. And that is going to probably be something that is going to break my heart when it comes up. But yes, as we get that, the final few panels and pages of this chapter is going to be setting up for what we're going to be getting in the next chapter. Because as Deku is punching Tomura Shigaraki and lands a definitive blow, potentially sending him into the past of Tomura's mindscape, something else that I want to bring up is how at this moment, Tomura isn't fighting back. We see that most likely his hand is reaching out, as it seems to be very symbolic of what his father did against him as he attacked Tomura when his decay quirk was activating. Which is very important because we have the last panel of Deku literally appearing in front of the house, which is the house where Tomura's hatred began, and that the reasoning why he's being sort of paralleled or being reflected as his father is because in this moment, he is kind of what his father was in that moment. He is trying to, in a way, fight off and stave the pain that he is feeling inside of him by lashing out and potentially attacking the thing that is very much antagonizing them in that moment. In Tomura's father's case, it is the fear of heroes and the fear of his son, and his son eventually overpowering him. And in the case of Tomura, his fear of Deku and just releasing these memories that he just wanted to repress as he tries to fight back. But in both cases, it's sort of what's happening is that they're reaping what they're sowing. The negative actions that they did in their past is now coming back to bite them in the butt, as we see Deku landing that definitive hit, and this going to potentially lead to Tomura losing the will to fight, something that he believes that he didn't want to do because he believes that he had to be the retribution for the world that created him. So, what do I think is going to be going down in the next chapter, which apparently we're not on break? A lot. I think that we're going to dive a little bit more into Deku beginning to understand how Tomura became the person he is right now by very much looking through the memories of Tinko Shimura and seeing what brought him to this place, and that he may be involved in the actual sort of kind of destruction of his family, and that while no one else was able to reach out and save him in that moment, Deku is going to be the one to actually reach out and save him, sort of kind of changing the past and potentially changing the Tomura that is in the present. But yeah, that's just what I think is going to be going on in the next chapter. The paneling in this chapter is top notch. The art is top notch as well. Enjoyed getting to see many different areas or many different, how should I say, locations, and getting to see characters that we haven't seen in a while appear in the final fight, and really showing that Horikoshi has not forgotten these characters, and I'm glad that we're able to get a little bit more of them in the final war, in this final arc, in the final act, and that we're potentially going to get towards the end of this story very soon, and potentially this fight ending within the next few chapters. But hey, what do you think is going to be happening within the next few chapters? Do you think that Deku is finally going to confront Tomura's past inside of the mind of All for One and One for All? Leave your thoughts down below, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. And I will end this video with dedicating it to the late great Akira Toriyama. I made a video of my feelings on the topic. Go watch it if you want to, but if not, thank you, Toriyama, for everything you have created. Without you, I wouldn't be here talking about My Hero Academia. I wish you the best, wish your family and loved ones the best. Thank you for everything, and I will catch you guys next time. Goodbye.